The New Zealand Church Missionary Society is a mission society working within the Anglican Communion and Protestant Evangelical Anglicanism. The parent organisation was founded in England in 1799. The Church Missionary Society sent missionaries to settle in New Zealand. The Revd Samuel Marsden, a member of the CMS and the senior Anglican minister in New South Wales, officiated at its first service on Christmas Day in 1814 at Oihi Bay in the Bay of Islands, New Zealand. History of the New Zealand Church Missionary Society. In 1892, the New Zealand Church Missionary Association was formed in a Nelson church hall, and the first New Zealand missionaries were sent to Japan. Soon after, funding from the UK stopped completely in 1903. The association subsequently changed its name to the New Zealand Church Missionary Society in 1916. In 2000, the NZCMS amalgamated with the South American Missionary Society of New Zealand. The NZCMS works closely with the Anglican Missions Board, concentrating on mission work outside New Zealand, and has been involved in Pakistan, East Africa, the Middle East, Cambodia, South Asia, South America and East Asia. History of the CMS mission in New Zealand. Founding of the CMS mission in New Zealand. The CMS founded its first mission at Rangihu in the Bay of Islands in 1814, and over the next decade established farms and schools in the area. Thomas Kendall and William Hall were directed, in 1814, to proceed to the Bay of Islands in the active. The vessel purchased by Samuel Marsden from the service of the mission, there to reopen communication with Ruatara, a local chief. An earlier attempt to establish a mission in the Bay of Islands had been delayed as a consequence of the Boyd massacre in Whangaroa Harbour in 1809. Kendall and Hall left New South Wales on 14 March 1814 on the active for an exploratory journey to the Bay of Islands. They met Rangatira of the Ngāpuhi, including Ruatara and his uncle Hongihika. Hongihika and Ruatara travelled with Kendall when he returned to Australia on the 22nd of August 1814. Kendall, Hall and John King returned to the Bay of Islands on the active on the 22nd of December 1814 to establish the mission. In 1819, Marsden made his second visit to New Zealand, bringing with him John Butler as well as Francis Hall and James Kemp as lay settlers. William Puckey, a boat builder and carpenter, came with his family, including William Gilbert Puckey, to assist in putting up the buildings at Karikari. The protector of the Karikari mission station was the chief Ruatara, and following his death in 1815, Hongihika accepted responsibility for the protection of the mission. Butler and Kemp took charge of the Karikari mission, but proved unable to develop a harmonious working relationship. In 1820, Marsden paid his third visit on HMS Dromedary, bringing James Shepherd. In 1823, Marsden paid his fourth visit, bringing with him Henry Williams and his wife Marianne, as well as Richard Davis, a farmer, and William Fairburn, a carpenter, and the respective families. In 1826, Henry's brother William and his wife Jane joined the CMS mission and settled at Paihia in the Bay of Islands. The immediate protector of the Paihia mission was the chief Taikoki, and his wife Hamu, a woman of higher rank and the owner of the land occupied by the mission. Work of the CMS mission in New Zealand. The CMS mission house in Karikari, completed in 1822, ranks as New Zealand's oldest surviving building. In the early days, the CMS funded its activities largely through trade. Thomas Kendall, like many secular settlers, sold weapons to Maori people, fueling the musket wars. Kendall brought Maori war chief Oihi to London in 1820, creating a minor sensation. When Henry Williams became the leader of the missionaries at Paihia in 1823, he immediately stopped the trade in muskets. The mission schools provided religious education as well as English language practical skills. The first baptism occurred in 1825. However, the evangelical mission of the CMS achieved success only after the baptism of Ngāpuhi Chief Rawiri Taifonga in 1830. His example influenced others to be baptized into the Christian faith. In 1833 a mission was established at Kaitaia in Northland as well as a mission at Puriri in the Thames area. In 1835 missions were established in the Bay of Plenty and Waikato regions at Tauranga, Matamata and Rotorua. The possessions of these missions were plundered during an intertribal war between the Maori people of Matamata, Rotorua and the Waikato River. In 1836 a mission was opened in the Manukau Harbour region. Translation of the Bible into the Maori language. By 1840 William Williams had translated much of the New Testament into the Maori language. After 1844 Robert Maunsell worked with William Williams on the translation of the Bible, with Maunsell working on the translation of the Old Testament, portions of which were published in 1840. In 1845 the Book of Common Prayer was translated by a committee comprising William Williams, Robert Maunsell, James Hamlin and William Puckey. The full translation of the Bible into the Maori language was completed in 1857. Influence of the CMS in New Zealand. The concern about the European impact on New Zealand, particularly lawlessness among Europeans and a breakdown in the traditional restraints in Maori society, meant that the CMS welcomed the United Kingdom's annexation of New Zealand in January 1840, with Henry Williams assisting Captain William Hobson by translating the document that became known as the Treaty of Waitangi. Henry Williams was also involved in explaining the treaty to Maori leaders, firstly at the meetings with William Hobson at Waitangi, but also later when he travelled to Port Nicholson, Queen Charlotte Sound, Kapiti, Waikanare and Otaki to persuade Maori chiefs to sign the treaty. His involvement in these debates brought him into the increasingly uncomfortable role of mediating between two races. The CMS reached the height of its influence in New Zealand in the 1840s and 1850s. Missions covered almost the whole of the North Island and many Maori were baptized. Maori converts engaged in missionary work. 2 were killed in 1847 when they travelled onto the land of hostile Maori. However, the murderers later welcomed a Christian missionary to reside in the land. The CMS missionaries held the low church beliefs that were common among the 19th-century evangelical members of the Anglican Church. There was often a wide gap between the views of the CMS missionaries and the bishops and other clergy of the high church traditions of the Oxford movement as to the proper form of ritual and religious practice. Bishop Selwyn, who was appointed the first Anglican bishop of New Zealand in 1841, held the high church views, although he appointed CMS missionaries to positions in the Anglican Church of New Zealand, including appointing William Williams as the first bishop of Waiapu. Early CMS personnel in New Zealand. The CMS in London began to reduce its commitment to the CMS mission in New Zealand in 1854 and only a handful of new missionaries arrived after that year. Members of the mission who arrived before 1854 included the Reverend Benjamin Y. Ashwell, arrived in 1835, and worked from 1839 at Otawhau in the valley of the Waipa River, and remained at that mission into the 1840s. In 1846 he was located at the Kaitotata mission near Mount Taupiri. died the 29th of September 1883. The Revd Charles Baker and his wife Hannah arrived on the 9th of June 1828, and worked at Kerikeri, then at Kororaraka, and they were at the mission station at Uawa from 1843 to 1851. Died the 6th of February 1875. The Revd Ralph Barker arrived in November 1850 and was appointed to East Cape, where he remained until 1852. He ended his connection with the CMS in 1854. The Revd Alfred Nesbitt Brown arrived in October 1829. He was put in charge of the school at Paihia. In 1835 he opened a mission station at Matamata, and from 1838 he was working at the mission station at Tauranga. In 1843 he was ordained as Archdeacon of Tauranga. In 1846 he was assisted by the Revd C.P. Davies. Died the 7th of September 1884. Robert Burrows arrived in 1840. He was at Kororaraka in 1845, and was at the Waimate Mission into the 1850s. Died the 22nd of August 1897. The Revd John Gar Butler arrived the 12th of August 1819 and ceased working for the CMS in 1822. The Revd Thomas Chapman arrived in 1830 and established a mission station at Rotorua in 1835, and remained at that mission into the 1840s. Died the 22nd of December 1876. The Revd George Clark, his wife Martha and family arrived on the 4th of April 1824. George was trained as a blacksmith and was appointed to Kerikeri. Then he worked at the Waimate Mission. The son Edward Bloomfield Clark joined the CMS in 1849. William Colenso arrived in December 1834 to work as a printer and missionary. William and Elizabeth Colenso worked at the Waitangi Mission at Ahuriri, Napier from 1844, until William Colenso was dismissed from the CMS in 1852. Elizabeth Fairburn Colenso was the daughter of Sarah Tuckwell and her husband, William Fairburn. She was born at the CMS mission at Kerikeri. She became fluent in Maori. She married William Colenso on the 27th of April 1843. Following his ordination as a deacon in September 1844, they established the Waitangi Mission Station at Ahuriri in Hawke's Bay. She became aware that William was the father of Wiremu, a child born in 1850 to Ripeka Meritan, who was a member of the household. Only after William's adultery became public knowledge in 1853 did they separate. Elizabeth continued to work for the CMS as a teacher at the Kaitatata Mission near Mount Taupiri in the Waikato. In the 1860s she worked on the manuscripts of the translation of the Bible into a Maori, including correcting proofs and suggesting alternative translations. The Revd Richard Davis, a farmer, arrived on the 7th of May 1824. He established a garden at the Paihia Mission. In 1831 he established a farm at the Waimate Mission and remained there into the 1940s. He was ordained on Trinity Sunday 1843 and appointed to Kaikohe. Died the 28th of May 1863. The Revd Christopher P. Davies, a surgeon, studied for his ordination in 1844 at St. John's College when it was located at Waimate. He married Marianne Williams, a daughter of Henry Williams and his wife Marianne. In 1846 Davies was at the Tauranga Mission, and after that until 1856 he was at the Opotiki Mission. Died 2/3 March 1861. The Revd William Charles Dudley and his wife Elizabeth arrived in 1942. Dudley worked at Tauranga, Wairoa and the Kauaronga Mission on the Hauraki Gulf in 1846. His connection with the CMS ended on 28 October 1854. William Thomas Fairbairn, a carpenter, and his wife Sarah accompanied Marsden on his second visit to New Zealand in 1819. In 1823 he was in Sydney and returned on board the Brampton with Henry and Aunt Marianne Williams. In October 1833 he went with John A. Wilson, James Preece and John Morgan to establish a mission station at Moriori in the Thames area. In 1840 he was at the mission station at Moriori and was at the Moriori mission in 1842. His daughter Elizabeth married William Colenso. The Revd Thomas Samuel Grace established a mission station at Taupo in 1850. In 1865 the Pai Moriori ransacked his house. Grace, who had fled from Taupo to Opotiki, was caught up in the Volkner incident. In the 1870s he rebuilt the Taupo mission. Died 30th of April 1879. The Revd Octavius Hadfield arrived in December 1838 and was ordained a minister at Paihia on 6 January 1839, and in November of that year he travelled to Otaki with Henry Williams, where he established a mission station. Died the 11th of December 1904. Francis Hall arrived the 12th of August 1819 and remained until 1823. William Hall, a ship carpenter, arrived on the active on the 22nd of December 1814 and left in ill health in 1824. The Revd James Hamlin, flax dresser and weaver, and his wife Elizabeth arrived in March 1826 with William and Jane Williams. He served as a catechist at the Waimate Mission and later at the mission stations at Kerikeri and Mangapori. In 1836 he became the head of the Manukau Mission. In 1844 he was ordained a deacon and sent to Wairoa, Hawke's Bay. In 1863 he was ordained a minister. Died 15 November 1865. John King arrived on the active on the 22nd of December 1814. He was a shoemaker by trade. With the CMS he was employed as a catechist, teaching the Maori at Rangihua. King was also engaged in work to effect improvement in the dressing of Formium Tenax. He was still with the CMS in 1845. James Kemp arrived the 12th of August 1819. Blacksmith, keeper of the mission stores and catechist, and schoolteacher at Kerikeri. The Revd Thomas Kendall arrived on the active on the 22nd of December 1814. He was dismissed from the CMS in August 1822. George Adam Kisling and Margaret Kisling worked at the Kawakawa Mission from 1843 to 1846. His ill health forced a move to Auckland. In 1846 the Kislings established a Maori girls' boarding school in Kohimarama. George Kisling died 9 November 1865. Margaret Kisling died on 20 September 1891. The Revd Thomas Lanfair arrived at the Moriori Mission in December 1849 and remained until January 1865. The Revd Samuel Marsden arrived in June 1835. The Revd John Mason, who arrived in 1840 and established a mission station at Wanganui. The Revd Mason drowned on 5 January 1843 while crossing the Turakina River. The Revd Joseph Matthews arrived in 1832. He and William Gilbert Puckey established a mission station at Kaitaia on 3 January 1833. Matthews remained in Kaitaia until he retired. Died 3 November 1895. Richard Matthews was the brother of Joseph Matthews. Richard Matthews arrived in 1835. He married Johanna Blomfield, sister of Mrs. Martha Blomfield Clark, who was the wife of George Clark. He served the CMS in Kaitaia, then was transferred to the Wanganui Mission. The Revd Robert Maunsell arrived in 1835 and he was sent to establish a mission station in the Manukau harbour at Port Waikato in the same year. He continued at the Manukau Mission into the 1840s. He later worked with William Williams on the translation of the Bible. Maunsell worked on the Old Testament, portions of which were published in 1840 with the full translation completed in 1857. He became a leading scholar of the Maori language. His son George joined the CMS. He died the 19th of April 1894. The Revd John Morgan arrived in 1833, and in December of that year he worked with James Priest to establish the Puriri Mission at Thames. He moved to the Mangapori Mission in May 1835. On the 26th of August 1835 he married Maria Matthew Coldham, the sister of Marianne Williams. In 1842 he moved to the mission station at Otawhau. In 1846 Morgan helped to construct 3 water mills that were built by the local Maori to mill wheat for sale. Died the 8th of June 1865. Henry Pilley, catechist and carpenter, arrived in February 1834 and worked in the Rotorua district. James Priest, catechist, arrived in 1830 and in December 1833 he worked with John Morgan to establish the Puriri Mission and continued at that mission into the 1840s. He moved to Kaweronga, then from 1847 to 1856 he was a missionary in the Uriwera country. Priest was buried at Coromandel in 1870. William Puckey, carpenter, arrived on the 12th of August 1819 with his wife Marjorie, son William Gilbert, and daughter Elizabeth. William and Marjorie left the mission in 1826. William Gilbert Puckey arrived with his parents in 1919, then joined the CMS in 1821. He helped build, then served as the mate of, the 55-foot schooner the Herald. He went to Sydney with his parents in 1826, then returned to the Bay of Islands the following year. He and Joseph Matthews established the Kaitaia Mission in 1833-34. As he had become fluent in the language since arriving as a boy of 14, he was a useful translator for the CMS mission, including collaborating with William Williams on the translation of the New Testament in 1837 and its revision in 1844. The Revd Charles Lucas Ray arrived in 1842 and was first located in Cloudy Bay and then at Nelson in 1844. Then he was transferred to Rangitukia at East Cape in 1847, where he died on the 11th of March 1848. James Shepherd visited with Marsden in 1817 and was placed at Rangihua in 1820. He was a skilled gardener, who taught the Maori how to plant vegetables, fruit and trees. He was generally employed among the different tribes, instructing them in the Christian religion, as he understood the Maori language better than any of the other missionaries at the time. He served at the mission stations at Kareo, Tape Una on the Purua Peninsula and Whangaroa. The Revd Seymour Mills Spencer from Hartford, Connecticut, arrived in Auckland in 1842 with his wife Ellen Stanley Spencer and was stationed in the Tauranga and Rotorua districts from the 23rd of November 1843. Spencer was ordained to be the deacon for the district of Taupo on the 24th of September 1843, but ended up being posted to the Rotorua mission. Spencer was at the Maketu mission in 1844. In 1944 the couple established the first missionary station at Lake Tarawera, working with the local Maori. They built a European-styled community called Te Wairoa. He was suspended from the CMS in 1844, then rejoined the CMS in 1849 and was stationed at Opotiki until about 1855. Then the couple returned to the Te Wairoa mission station and remained there until 1870. Died the 30th of April 1898. William Spikeman, a herdsman, arrived in the Bay of Islands from Sydney in 1833. The Revd James Stack had been a Wesleyan missionary at Whangaroa, then later joined the CMS and was sent to the Moriori mission at Thames, where his son James West Stack was born. In 1839 Stack and his wife Mary joined William Williams at the Turanga mission in Oihi Bay, and in 1859 he was in the Waikato. The Revd Richard Taylor arrived in 1836. He succeeded William Williams as principal of the Waimate Boys' School in September 1839 and remained there into the 1840s. The Revd Taylor moved to join the Wanganui mission in 1842. Died the 10th of October 1873. John Telford was stationed at Otaki and was at Wanganui in 1851. The Revd Carl Silvius Volkner was sent to New Zealand by the North German Missionary Society, arriving in August 1849. In 1852, he offered his services to CMS and assisted the Revd Robert Maunsell by teaching in the school at the Manukau Mission. He married Emma Lanfear, sister of a CMS missionary. Volkner was ordained a priest in 1861 and took charge of the CMS mission station at Opotiki in August that year. On the 1st of March 1865 he was captured by the Pai Moriori led by Patara, a chief, and Keriopaterau, a Pai Moriori prophet. Volkner was hanged and decapitated at his church grounds on the 2nd of March 1865 in what became known as the Volkner Incident. William R. Wade, printer, arrived in December 1834 and worked with William Colenso at Paihia. He later established a mission station at Tauranga in 1835. John Alexander Wilson retired from the Navy and in 1832 he joined the CMS as a lay missionary. In 1833 he and James Priest opened a mission station at Moriori, Thames, and in 1836 he and William Wade went to Te Papa Mission Station, Tauranga. His wife, Anne Wilson, died on the 23rd of November 1838, leaving her 4 young sons, including John Alexander Wilson, to be brought up by the father. In 1840 he established a mission station at Opotiki. He was ordained a deacon in 1852. In 1860 he was a missionary chaplain to Maori war parties at Waitara, Taranaki. His connection with the CSM ended on the 21st of January 1868. The Revd Henry Williams and Marianne Williams arrived in the Bay of Islands in 1823. Henry Williams was appointed as the leader of the CMS mission in New Zealand. In 1844 Williams was installed as Archdeacon of Waimate in the diocese centered on the Waimate mission. The Revd William Williams and Jane Williams arrived in the Bay of Islands in 1826. William Williams led the CMS missionaries in translating the Bible into Maori, and he also published an early dictionary and grammar of the Maori language. Williams was appointed Archdeacon of the East Cape Diocese and later as the first Bishop of Waiapu. William Yate arrived in the Bay of Islands on the 19th of January 1828. He was appointed to lead the Waimate mission. His personal life became a matter of controversy and he was dismissed from the CMS on the 24th of February 1837. Bibliography. CMS in New Zealand, compiled by R.J. Bartin. Earliest New Zealand, the Journals and Correspondence of the Rev. John Butler. Early New Zealand Books, University of Auckland Library. Coleman, John Noble. Memoir of the Rev. Richard Davis. Early New Zealand Books. University of Auckland Library. Carlton, Hugh. The Life of Henry Williams, Volumes 1 and Amp 2. Early New Zealand Books. University of Auckland Library. Retrieved 18 April 2015. Fitzgerald, Caroline. Letters from the Bay of Islands. Sutton Publishing Limited, United Kingdom. ISBN 0-7509-36967. Penguin Books, New Zealand. ISBN 0-14301929-5. Fitzgerald, Caroline. Te Remu, Henry Williams. Early Years in the North. Huia Press, New Zealand. ISBN 9781869694395. Williams, William. Christianity Among the New Zealanders. London. Online available from archive.org. Williams, W. The Tauranga Journals. 1840–1850. Ed. F. Porter, Wellington, 1974. Online available from ENZB.